If the thought of stepping up to a microphone, even if it's just in a small team meeting,
Yeah.
sends this wave of just icy, gut-wrenching panic straight through you, you are so not alone.
Yeah.
That sinking feeling, the dry mouth, the sudden urge to just run out of the building and start a new life,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a sign you're weak. It's just your ancient brain basically seeing a room full of staring people as this massive threat.
And that's the core of it, right? It's a biological interpretation. And the standard advice we always hear, just be confident or just relax.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work
No.
because it's asking you to, like, suppress this deep, involuntary thing your body is doing.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who really wants actionable strategies, trying to force yourself to be calm, it usually makes the problem way worse. You end up fighting your own biology.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to look at a whole stack of high-profile stories and some, pretty solid research to find a better way. We're drawing lessons from people who openly admit they were terrified.
Right, not the naturals.
No, people like Richard Branson, who built this huge empire on being visible, even though he dreaded it. Or Sarah Blakely, who saved Spanx's first big sale with this really bizarre move.
Tim Ferriss, practicing for an audience of dogs.
Yeah, chihuahuas. And even titans like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Jensen Huang.
And what you find in all their stories again and again is this one big aha moment. And it's that the goal is not to become fearless. It never should be.
Fearlessness is a myth.
Total myth. The real functional goal is to learn how to speak, how to keep control, while your body is basically in full protest mode. It's about building a solid external structure, a plan, a ritual, a script, something the internal panic can't break.
So we've basically boiled down all their strategies into 4 core principles. They're like these psychological handrails you can grab onto, and we're going to unpack every single one.
We'll start with what we're calling the Branson principle. How you shrink that huge social threat just by talking to one person. It keeps your nervous system from going haywire.
Then second, we've got the Blakely principle. This is all about replacing that vague, overwhelming pressure of performing with the simple, concrete goal of, doing a demo.
After that, we connect what we learned from Tim Ferriss and Steve Jobs. So, the Ferriss-Jobs principle. It's about tackling the root cause of the anxiety, which is uncertainty, through just, like, radical rehearsal.
And realizing that using notes isn't a failure, it's a pro move.
Exactly. And finally, we'll put it all together with the Gates-Huang principle. This is all about controlling that initial anxiety spiral by just anchoring your first minute with a really clear, predictable ritual.
Okay, let's get into it, starting with the man who built a global brand by being its public face, even though he hated the spotlight. Sir Richard Branson.
Branson is the perfect place to start because his first big public speaking moment wasn't just, a bit of nervousness. It was a complete and total cognitive failure. It forced him to find a real structural solution, not just more willpower.
So the scene is London, University College London, late 1960s. Branson is super young. He's the founder of Student Magazine, and he's trying really hard to seem older, more in control.
And the context here is, it's just brutal. He's on the same stage as these, like, genuine cultural heavy hitters, people like Tariq Ali and Danny Cohn-Bendit.
Leaders of the student movements.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were fiery, they were confident, they had the entire room stamping, cheering, totally engaged, just in the palm of their hands. The bar was set impossibly high for him.
So Branson is forced to sit there and watch these masters of rhetoric while he's waiting for his turn. And this is where the anxiety trap just snaps shut on him.
You can just imagine it.
Yeah, while he's watching, his body is just gearing up for what it sees as a threat. He said later he was fighting this intense nausea, his mouth was bone dry, heart's pounding, and the actual thoughts he needed, his speech, were just slipping away.
And that's biology. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's preparing for fight or flight. It's redirecting blood flow away from the part of your brain that handles things like, linear thought and word recall.
And prefrontal cortex.
Right. It's prioritizing survival over giving a good speech. That's why your mind goes blank and your voice gets shaky.
So when he finally takes the stage, the fear just becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. His mind is totally empty. He kind of mumbles an apology, a few broken sentences, and just gets off the stage as fast as he can.
He described it as one of the most embarrassing moments of his entire life. He said his first instinct was just to hide from public view forever.
But then comes this hinge moment. It comes from his mentor, the airline entrepreneur, Sir Freddie Laker.
And Laker didn't see the personal fear. He saw the business problem. He gives him this piece of brutally practical advice. He says, Richard, you have to become the face of your company. Headlines are cheaper than big ad campaigns.
That's the ultimate reframe, isn't it? He didn't say be confident. He said your business needs this.
Exactly. Branson realized his nervousness was basically an expensive liability. He couldn't let his own discomfort sink the company. He had to find a method, a technique that let him function despite the fear.
And that's where he develops this first core principle, something he had to train himself to do every single time he spoke. The idea is simple. Talk to one person.
So simple, but so powerful.
Okay, wait, I have to push back a little here. If I'm in a huge ballroom, 500 people, maybe just 50, and I'm on a stage, how do I actually do that? Won't I look, weird just staring at one person? How do I trick my brain?
That's a great question because it's not about physical deception. You're not trying to pretend the other 499 people aren't there. The goal is the cognitive reframe. You are shrinking the perceived threat inside your own mind.
Okay, so unpack that mechanism. Why does focusing on one person work so well?
When you're up there looking at this huge faceless crowd, your brain sees that as this massive collective judgment. Hundreds of eyes just staring. That triggers the fight or flight. Branson's trick is to stop speaking to the crowd. You speak to one person, have a conversation. Then, after 15 or 20 seconds, you deliberately shift your focus to another single person.
So you're changing the assignment.
Precisely. You're telling your body you're just in a one-on-one conversation, which is a normal, low-threat thing we do all day. Even on a stage, by grounding your focus like that, you keep your internal systems online. You're just delivering the same content, but internally, the task feels familiar.
And this ties back to that research you mentioned earlier from Allison Wood Brooks, the idea that calm isn't always the goal.
Yes, that Brooks study from 2014 is fascinating. She found that when people actively reappraise their anxiety as excitement.
So just relabeling the feeling.
Exactly. Instead of trying to suppress it or force themselves to relax, they just told themselves, I'm excited. And they consistently performed better in stressful tasks, like public speaking or even singing karaoke.
So why is saying I'm excited better than I need to relax?
Because when you say relax, you're fighting the physical reality. The adrenaline is already there, your heart is racing, it's exhausting, and it usually fails. You're creating this conflict between your mind and body. But when you say, I'm excited, you're not fighting the arousal. You're just giving it a new name. You're telling yourself that racing heart is productive fuel for what's next.
So Branson's talk to one tactic is the practical way to do that. You shrink the threat until that physical arousal just feels like manageable excitement, not sheer panic.
Absolutely. It makes the exposure tolerable.
Right.
And that's how the body learns. Through structured, repeated, tolerable exposure, your body figures out that those physical feelings aren't actually dangerous.
So if someone listening wants to put this Branson principle into practice, what are the most actionable tools?
Okay, first, you have to be intentional. Pick a single listener.
Mm-hmm.
Before you even start talking, scan the audience. Find one person who looks friendly or who's nodding, or, even just imagine a specific friend who really needs to hear what you're about to say. Deliver your first 30 seconds just to them.
That's your anchor. It makes it specific, not this big, scary general crowd.
Exactly. Next, protect your opening line. Use a conversation sentence. Memorize a non-stiff opener that sounds like a discussion, not a lecture. Something like, here's what I learned the hard way about this. Or, if you only remember one thing from our conversation today, make it this. It breaks that formal pattern that makes us nervous.
And we have to integrate the research, the reframe.
Yes. Right before you start, in that moment when your heart is pounding, say it to yourself, I'm excited. You have to mean it. It's a powerful cognitive trick to redirect that adrenaline instead of fighting it.
But if the physical symptoms are already spiking, that can feel impossible. You need a physical anchor too, right?
You absolutely do. You have to get physiological control before the cognitive tricks can work. So take 60 to 90 seconds for some slow-paced, steady breathing before you even get up there. We'll get into the specifics of the best technique later, but the idea is simple. Slow the body first.
And finally, for the long game, it's all about exposure.
Right. You have to train exposure in tiny reps. Don't just practice your whole 10-minute talk once. Practice the first 60 seconds 10 times. Start with a voice note to yourself. Then do it for one friend on the phone. Then a small meeting. You're basically teaching your body, through repetition, that this feeling is survivable.
So the one-line charge for this whole idea is what Branson learned. Talk to one until your nerves forget there are many. And that leads us perfectly into the second strategy, which is all about shifting that attention even further outward. This one comes from Sarah Blakely.
Blakely's story is so great because it's about what happens when you're already nervous. You can tell your words aren't working. It's about that moment when self-doubt usually just takes over and kills the whole thing.
So we're in Dallas, the year 2000. Blakely is pitching Spanx. It's a totally new idea. She's got 10 minutes with a buyer from Neiman Marcus. For her tiny, self-funded company, this is like the Super Bowl.
And her background is so important here. She sold fax machines door to door for years. She's tough. She's used to rejection. But this is different. This isn't just a transaction. It's a performance of her and her idea.
So she starts her pitch explaining the fabric, the concept, but she can just feel it failing. The buyer's expression is just neutral. The words are not landing.
And that's the universal trigger, isn't it? When
Yeah.
you sense that lack of connection, the internal monologue starts. They don't get it. I'm boring them. This is a disaster. Most people in that moment, they just start talking faster, over-explaining.
They flood you with nervous chatter.
Exactly. But Blakely does the opposite. She stops. She just stops the whole pitch. And she makes this radical, almost absurd pivot. She asks this high-profile corporate buyer to come with her to the restroom.
Okay, but think about that. This is Neiman Marcus corporate. Asking a buyer to go to the bathroom with you sounds incredibly risky. Wouldn't that just create a whole new kind of anxiety for her?
That's a great point. But she wasn't managing her own nerves anymore. She was managing the buyer's confusion. The fear was already there because her words were failing. So she exchanged this vague, huge fear failing the pitch with talk for a concrete, manageable task. Show the product.
And the demo itself is legendary. She goes into the bathroom, she puts on her own product under a pair of white pants, and shows the buyer this undeniable before and after.
The medium just flips. It goes from abstract words to this visceral, concrete proof.
And the result was instant. The buyer's face went from confusion to clarity. She called it brilliant and agreed on the spot to put Spanx in 7 stores.
The whole deal was saved. Not by better words, but by a physical demonstration that shifted everyone's attention away from Blakely's nerves and onto the customer's aha moment. This is the Blakely principle. Replace performance with proof. Make it a demo.
It's such a powerful idea because nervous speakers, we always think the solution is more talking. Just explain it better. Blakely realized the solution wasn't in the language at all. It was in the action.
And think about what that demo does for your nervous system. It breaks that loop of self-monitoring. When you're anxious, you're thinking, what are my hands doing? Is my voice shaking? But a demo forces your focus outward. Look at this. Notice this result. You're literally pointing the attention somewhere else.
So you're not the thing being judged anymore. The result is you've given your nervous system an external job to do.
Exactly. You're carrying a task, not a spotlight.
Yeah.
And if you build a demo beat into your talk, that moment acts like a relief valve. The anxiety just has to step aside for the action you need to take.
So let's make this actionable. How can we all build a demo beat into our talks, even if we're pitching something abstract, like a new strategy or software?
You have to design one concrete demo beat per talk. It doesn't have to be, hosiery in a bathroom. If you're talking about a new strategy, your demo could be a single slide showing a before and after of a workflow. If it's software, it's a quick 10-second screenshot tour of the one key feature. The rule is, show, don't just tell.
I see people skip that part all the time when they're nervous. They state the problem, jump right to the ask, and they miss the proof.
That's the classic mistake, and it just makes the anxiety worse. You need to use what we can call the aha ladder. It goes problem, then demo, then proof, then the ask. If you skip the demo and proof, the listener gets lost. You sense them drifting, and your nerves spike even more. The demo keeps everyone grounded.
And you have to keep that service mindset, just like Blakely, the former fax machine salesperson.
Yes, borrow her lens. Make it about them. What do they gain? The demo has to connect directly to their pain point. If they hate complexity, your demo has to show radical simplicity.
And that demo moment, that's a high arousal point in the talk.
So we use the reframe again. Just before your demo, that's when you use the cognitive trick. You feel that surge of adrenaline, and instead of fighting it, you say to yourself, I'm excited. You harness that energy to execute the demo cleanly instead of letting it make you fumble.
And finally, it seems like you absolutely have to practice that specific physical action under a little bit of pressure.
It is essential. You have to practice under mild pressure and treat the demo like an anchor. Rehearse standing up, use a timer, and make sure that demo beat happens at the exact same point in the talk every single time. You're training your body to hit that mark, making it reflexive.
So the maxim is clear. Give your nerves a job. Build the demo, then let the demo speak. This takes us right into the third strategy, which is all about structure and repetition. Not for confidence, but for predictability.
This brings us to the dual strategies of Tim Ferriss and Steve Jobs. Two people whose mastery on stage completely hides how much they relied on just extreme, almost obsessive preparation to manage their own anxiety.
Let's start with Tim Ferriss and the Chihuahua test. So the scene is Austin, SXSW, 2007. This was the big one, the presentation that would launch the 4-hour work week. The stakes for his career could not have been higher.
And Ferris has been really open about this. He was, in his own words, incredibly nervous, and his anxiety made him avoidant. He was too nervous to practice in front of actual people, even his friends, so he hides out in a friend's garage to rehearse.
That's so relatable. Practicing out loud feels so vulnerable. A lot of people just run through it in their heads.
Which gives you a false sense of security. But in his garage, he gets this unexpected audience. 3 tiny, highly distractible Chihuahua dogs wander in.
And this is where he comes up with this brilliant, if slightly bizarre, metric for success.
He does. He realizes this is his only audience. So
Yep.
he just repeats the talk over and over until he could reliably get the dogs to sit and stare at me to hold their attention. His measure of success wasn't feeling calm. It was the external, measurable focus of this really difficult audience.
That is so smart. He's not waiting until he feels ready, which is the trap. He is rehearsing until the talk is so familiar that his nervous system can't treat it like a new emergency anymore. The action becomes automatic.
It's a fusion of a few key concepts. It's exposure doing the reps no matter how you feel. It's overlearning, practicing past competence until it's just muscle memory. And it's attention control. He had an external target, the dog's attention. He stopped trying to feel ready and just started to be repeated.
So if Ferriss gives us the playbook for radical rehearsal, Steve Jobs gives us permission to use a safety net. This story is from his 2005 Stanford commencement speech.
Right, and this was a totally new genre for him. He was the master of the corporate keynote, the product reveal. He controlled everything. But a commencement speech is personal, it's philosophical. He actually called the draft embarrassing and woke up that morning riddled with anxiety.
Which is just wild, coming from the man who defined stage mastery. Why was this speech so different for him?
The stakes had changed. It wasn't about marketing. It was about his personal legacy, his mortality, especially with his recent health problems. The vulnerability was extreme. He couldn't hide behind a product. He had to tell 3 stories about his own life.
And his move here is the key takeaway for anyone who gets nervous.
Absolutely.
Right.
He chose to read from printed pages. He had notes right there on the lectern. That was not his usual style at all. But it wasn't weakness. It was a deliberate strategy to reduce his cognitive load and get rid of the uncertainty. He gave himself a structural rail to hold, the 3 stories, and a physical script to make sure he got it right.
So he was modeling how a professional handles high stakes. You use a tool. You don't just try to feel like a natural. You protect the content from your anxiety.
The big principle here, connecting Ferriss and Jobs, is that anxiety is a reaction to uncertainty. So rehearse until it's boring. A solid structure just shrinks the number of decisions you have to make in the moment. It gives you a home base to return to if you get lost.
So let's translate this into some actionable tools for the listener.
Okay, first, you have to rehearse to a hard audience. Your mirror is too friendly. Use Ferriss's method. Record yourself on camera. Most people hate watching themselves, which is great mild exposure. Or practice in front of a skeptical friend who won't just tell you it's great. You need that mild pressure.
And make that pressure a regular thing.
For sure. Schedule mild pressure reps. Always practice standing up on a timer, recorded. If your talk is 15 minutes long, practicing it once is not enough. The simulation teaches your body that the feeling of performance isn't danger, it's just fuel.
What about the structure itself, the non-negotiable bedrock?
You have to protect your bedrock. Ferriss said your delivery can get shaky from nerves, but your content doesn't have to. So build a sturdy structure. 3 clear points, 1 core story, and 1 single takeaway. That foundation will hold up even if you feel like you're falling apart.
And what about using a page, like Jobs did? A lot of people feel like that makes them look like an amateur.
That is a terrible assumption we just have to drop. Give yourself a page, print out your key points, or even better, your word-for-word first minute in a large, clean font, and then practice the page-to-eye rhythm. Look down for the first word of a sentence, internalize the phrase, then lift your eyes and deliver it. Reading is a professional tool for precision.
So the takeaway is, if your nerves want chaos, hand them a page. Now that covers structure, but we have to manage that huge physiological spike at the very beginning. And that brings us to our final principle, controlling the first minute.
We've established that nervousness peaks right at the start. You haven't proven you can do it yet. The audience hasn't given you any positive feedback. It's a moment of maximum uncertainty, so it's the moment of maximum biological threat.
And Bill Gates gave us a masterclass on how to anchor that moment at TED in 2009.
The setting is key. TED is designed to be intimidating. Gates is talking about malaria, which is a topic that a wealthy Western audience can easily detach from. He needed to create an immediate visceral connection to keep them engaged, and, just as important, to give his own nervous system a clear, concrete task to follow.
So he starts talking about malaria transmission, the science of it, and then he just says he brought some mosquitoes so the audience could experience this, and he opens a jar.
And the audience reaction is immediate and perfect. They flinch, they gasp, and then they laugh nervously. But the crucial thing is, everyone's focus instantly and collectively shifts from Bill Gates, the speaker, to the mosquitoes, the prop.
The focus is off him. The prop is the anchor.
It is a brilliant psychological handrail. He anchors his first minute with this planned external move. It gives his nervous system a simple three-step script. Talk about malaria. Open the jar, land the punchline, which was, there's no reason only poor people should have the experience. It completely prevents that anxiety spiral you can get at the beginning.
And that idea of reframing the job is perfectly mirrored by our last example from NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang talking to a crowd of 11,000 people.
Huang is known for these huge keynotes, but he was really open about his fear. He said the size of the crowd took the breath out of me and that he's still scared.
So what does he do? He uses this explicit cognitive ritual. He tells himself, I'm an engineer, I'm not a performer.
And that reframes the whole task.
Yeah.
He stops grading himself on charisma or stage presence, the things that nerves can just destroy, and he focuses only on clarity and usefulness, information transfer. The fear doesn't go away, but he gets contained inside this professional mission.
So the core principle here is just so vital. Control the start, control the spiral. And to do that, you need a pre-decided ritual.
A good ritual has to do three things. One, it has to regulate your arousal. Two, it has to direct attention outward, like the mosquito jar. And three, it has to trigger action, like Blakely's demo. The nervous habit is to ease in, apologize, use filler words. These leaders do the opposite. They start with a high-impact, predictable action.
Okay, let's synthesize all of this into a clear, step-by-step, pre-stage ritual. How do we anchor that first minute?
First, structure. Write a first-minute script, word for word. The hook, the topic, why it matters. You can loosen up after that, but that first minute has to be rehearsed so much that it's reflexive, like Jobs' printed page.
Then we use the Gates move.
Yep, use a shared focus move. Have a prop, an image, a one-sentence demo that forces everyone's attention away from you during your most fragile moment. You're telling the audience where to look.
And what if you blank? What's the safety line?
You need to install a safety line. One memorized sentence you can pivot to if you freeze. Something like, let me give you the single headline first. And then you just deliver your main thesis. It gets you moving again without panicking.
Now let's get to the physiological part, the breathing. This is the foundation that makes all the mental tricks possible.
This is where we bring in the physiological reset. Research from places like Stanford has shown that cyclic sighing is incredibly effective for acute anxiety. It's 2 short, sharp inhales through the nose, followed by 1 long, extended exhale through the mouth.
Why that specific pattern? 2 inhales, 1 long exhale.
The double inhale helps you take in the maximum amount of air, but the long, slow exhale is the key. It physically signals to the vagus nerve, which controls your body's rest and digest system, that the threat is over. It rapidly brings down your heart rate and arousal. It's often more effective than just meditation or deep breathing. Do that for just a few minutes before you go on.
And we pair that physical reset with the cognitive ritual from Jensen Huang.
Absolutely. Right after the cyclic sighing, just before you open your mouth, name your role, not your fear. Whisper it to yourself. I'm here as an expert, not a performer. You're taking the subjective judgment out of it. And then right after that, you use the I'm excited reappraisal. You're building this concrete sequence that replaces the panic loop with a professional one.
This has been an incredibly practical deep dive. We've pulled out these mechanical, reliable strategies from leaders who look effortless but are actually relying on incredibly rigorous prep.
Yeah, the core idea to take away is that success here isn't about achieving some mythical state of calm. It's about accepting the adrenaline is going to be there and then building a structure and a ritual that can work with it. You're harnessing the energy, not trying to kill it.
So if we had to boil it down to the 3 most useful science-backed actions someone could start using tomorrow, what would they be?
Number 1, reframe arousal as excitement. Don't fight the adrenaline. Relabel it as fuel. Use slow, structured cyclic sighing, that double inhale, long exhale. It will physically calm your nervous system.
Yeah, agree.
Practice extreme overlearning. Rehearse until the talk feels boring to you. That eliminates the uncertainty that anxiety feeds on. That's the Ferris and Jobs model.
And this all comes back to you, the listener. We've seen that Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Jensen Huang, these masters of the stage who look fearless, they all rely on rigorous external structures, scripts, props, rituals.
Which really raises the big question you should take with you. If these world-class professionals need mechanical scaffolding to manage their nerves, what assumption do you need to drop about being a natural speaker? Stop waiting for talent to show up and start building the professional mechanics that these leaders use every single time.
So the final maxims to carry into your next presentation.
Talk to one until your nerves forget. There are many.
Give your nerves a job. Build the demo, then let the demo speak.
And remember, you don't need less fear. You need a plan that works while you're scared.